Hello Minecraftians and welcome back to Realm News. And to you new listeners out there who may not be familiar with the show, I am the Dark Lord, the one who puts the real in Realm and expands your mind one block at a time. The show that covers all things Minecraft and relates real world knowledge to the game. From science to philosophy, Minecraft theories and comments from the community, Roman gods to the Chalcolithic period are just a few examples. I cover it all. So welcome to the show, all you newcomers. Last week we covered nether portals, which is taking us on a tour of the nether. And today I will be talking all about the mechanical smoldering beast called the Blaze. Perhaps you have encountered the Blaze. Perhaps you have not. I would like to announce that I have finally found the Blaze and got Blaze rods. So excited. At last. Just wanted to make that announcement right off the bat for all of you people to hear out there. However, we will all eventually encounter the Blaze sooner or later. That is if you want to advance in the game and go to the end. And today we will be covering everything about this mob, the history of the creature, its behavior, and its precious blaze rods, what they can craft from those rods, what we can do with those. We will be going into the real of the show by visiting a very famous festival out in the Nevada desert, the infamous Burning Man Festival. I hope you brought plenty of bottled water because it's going to get blazing hot on today's episode. But before we delve into the real of the show, it is time to hear feedback from the Minecraft community themselves. It's poll time! Yes, it is poll time, everybody. Last week I presented a poll that asked what you mine for in the nether. Well, this week is somewhat similar, but it is about shoveling. I asked, if you only had one of these as an option to shovel for a resource in your world, which one would you choose? Here are the options I provided, just 3 of them. Here it goes. Sand, gravel, or dirt blocks? And that is a very tricky question if you sit down and just think about that. All 3 of these options seem like useless materials, but they are not. This poll garnered an even 30 votes. Allow me to tell you what I chose before I read off these results. Out of the 3 options listed, I had opted for sand. I have briefly mentioned in an earlier episode that I have a very sand-hungry kingdom, as I mentioned, quote unquote. I think about 3 episodes ago I said something like that. Meaning, I love glass in all of my builds. In fact, my first farm I built was a glass farm, the Charmois City Glassworks factory to be precise. It is still operational today. It was my main producer of glass for over a year in my kingdom. My kingdom has literally consumed whole entire beaches in order to produce glass. I have built towns near sand beaches just to have a village nearby connected to rail to ship it. I hope that explains why I chose sand. With that said, I will read the loser of this week's poll. The loser with 3 measly votes is gravel. I should have guessed that gravel would be the least favored of this trio. I speculate that many people are trading for flint. And also arrows with the Fletcher in a village. I always dreaded making arrows because gravel to me is just a nuisance to shovel. According to minecraft.wiki, it has a 10% chance of dropping flint, and then you are just stuck with a bunch of gravel, which some players do use gravel. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm sorry if I stepped on some toes there, but yes, indeed, some players do use gravel for making concrete, for example. Like my girlfriend who goes by Gaia Divine in the game. She made my capital's city library lighthouse completely made of white and red concrete blocks. And it looks fantastic. You've heard me rave about it in earlier episodes in this show. It is just a preference thing for me, I suppose. I'll trade for the flint and arrows when I need or the flint and arrows when I need arrows, yeah, or for flint and steel. If I need the flint, I'll trade for that. I believe the majority of players share those same sentiments as I do. Now, moving on to the second place block in this poll with 12 total votes is dirt. Yes, the iconic dirt block. For many people, this is what your first fort was made of when you came into the overworld. At least if you're me. Mine was made of pure dirt, and the original structure is still there today in my realm. I am keeping it preserved as a memento of how far my empire has came. Now, I could have seen dirt being number one in this poll. I was a bit shocked to see that it came in second place. I see it being a very important block because you can grow crops on this, making it quite the resource for when it comes to personal sustenance and for breeding a whole multitude of mobs, such as villagers, sheep, cows, pigs, almost everything you need to grow from the ground in order to breed mobs. The first place block of this week's poll, just to move on, is sand. I guess people are just as sand hungry as I am. I imagine that not too many people like to build structures that are prison-like. They want to let that light in with glass. Glass is great for windows, so you can see hostile mobs lurking around outside. You can dye it any color that you please. This just enhances your decor and makes your builds even more unique to you. It smelts relatively fast, and sand is easy to come by in most cases. Red sand can even be used to craft TNT. However, I could have seen dirt being the winner of this poll. It helps keep you alive, at least, that block. I have some comments now that I would like to read to you all, as I typically do in this show. I'll start with a Redditor whose name shall not be mentioned for censorship purposes, but they go on to say that, quote, dirt is better because you can get blocks such as mud and clay, podzol if it qualifies as grass surely qualify, glass and concrete can be accessed from villagers, dirt can't be unless you're into the wandering trader. End quote, sorry. I am guessing that they voted for the dirt on this one. In all seriousness, they are correct. You can trade for glass with the cartographer and the librarian. And I forgot all about the mud and clay that can be used to make mud bricks, all from dirt. Also, the mud can be dried out with dripstone and turned into clay. The clay in turn can be placed inside a furnace and transformed into terracotta. And then you can stain the terracotta if you so desire. I can see why Anonymous there, who wrote in, chose dirt. If I was not so jaded by glass, then I would have voted for this block. Next and last commenter for this week's poll is by a fellow who goes by the handle of Liminal Addiction. They say, quote, for me, the sound shoveling sand makes is why I chose it. Too satisfying, end quote. I agree. It is a very pleasant sound that keeps you wanting to continue shoveling all day. Happy shoveling away, my friend, and thank you for that comment. That's all I really have to say on that one. And there you have it, folks. The Minecraftians have spoken, and they have said that they prefer sand over dirt and gravel. Now, moving on to the next segment of the show, I will be talking about a very famous fire festival that has been going on since the 80s in the United States. In the real segment of today's show, I will be discussing everything you need to know in order to go to the Burning Man in Nevada, the Black Rock Desert in Nevada. I thought this would be perfect for linking the real to Minecraft's blaze in today's show. Why? Because the blaze burns. Burning Man, they burn effigies. So bring some beef, some torches, Don't forget a bucket, maybe some armor, a sword, a bed, and whatever else you'll need to survive this excursion into the nether. And for Burning Man, because you can dress like that out there. You can dress however you want. This is a crazy festival. So let's gear all up and let's go, folks. Welcome to The Real, where I connect real-world knowledge to the game of Minecraft in order to deepen the gaming experience. I will be the first to admit, I was stumped on what to link the mob character called the Blaze with in the real world. I looked up mythological monsters and, of course, found a myriad of fire-breathing beasts within history and in lore. But then I remembered a festival here in the United States of America that was all about setting huge effigies ablaze. This brings us to the Burning Man. I will be the first to admit that I did not have any deep understanding to the purpose of this festival. Allow me to begin with the history of the Burning Man. According to burningman.org, the Burning Man Festival can trace its roots back to June 6, 1986, when two guys by the name of Larry Harvey and Jerry James built an 8-foot-tall human effigy out of scrap lumber down in a basement in California. This day, the day that they made this effigy, marked the summer solstice. Or it just happened to be the summer solstice on this day. I don't know if they did that deliberately, but I'm guessing they did. Summer solstice is the longest day of the year. The two friends dragged their effigy to Baker Beach in San Francisco. They brought along a few other friends and went about setting up the wooden statue on the beach. They proceeded to douse it in gasoline, which they later switched over to the less combustible diesel in the years following, because gasoline is just way too flammable, people. This tall wooden structure, the shape of a human, drew a small crowd on that beach, which equaled out to be around 35 people. They lit it and watched it combust and burn. A random beach stroller who had a guitar stopped by and started to sing a fire song, which led to everyone to break out into song like some sort of Glee episode. This was the first artist and the first performer was about to come to stage, meaning a girl in the crowd came out of the crowd and walked up to the burning effigy while the wind was swiping the flames towards in one direction, away from the wooden body. The girl grabbed the exposed hand and held it, allowing for one of the two founders to snap a picture of this moment. They consider this to be the first art performance. In that first burn, a culture had emerged. A kind of funny, disputed fact about why the effigy was built that I want to tell you all comes from a quote by a Black Rock Ranger named Joe Fenton, who was doing a paper for his college anthropology class over festivals. He said, quote, Larry told me very specifically that the figure was an effigy of his ex-girlfriend, the mother of his son. He told me he wanted to burn her out of his memory. He moved off that soon afterward. I guess he figured it wasn't very politically correct, and now that idea is actively suppressed. End quote. Larry Harvey is one of the founders of Burning Man, if you recall. He argues that he never said that. Some people say that the effigy is what you want it to be. That's the beauty of it. The first burn must have really got into their blood, though, because they had planned to do it again the following year. But they had put a little bit more thought into it this year. They made up flyers for the June 20th get-together at Baker Beach again for the second get-together. They included a poem on this flyer as well by poet Dylan Thomas. This time they were having a 4 o'clock potluck if the weather was cooperative. And they amped it up by making the effigy even taller this year. The first year, it was 8 feet tall. In 1987, the following year, they made it 15 feet tall, or roughly 4.5 meters tall for you people that live in metric societies. Now, a story and a half in building terms, I want to say. If you were to compare that to a building, it'd be about a story and a half. Now, they got rid of the triangular hips that was placed on the first build of the Burning Man that first year, and the second year they went with a straight-legged effigy. However, they kept the triangular-shaped head. Not that that matters, because the effigy, although always similar in form, does change a bit. It does change a bit every year in head shape, I've noticed while reading this. But it is usually always the same shape. It does vary in sizes, though. Now, 80 people turned out to this event for that second year. An even bigger success than the first one. But it wasn't until 1988, the third year, that they named the effigy officially the Burning Man. They printed more flyers and posters that incorporated the same poem as the first flyer the year before. And I didn't read the poem on this because I did not want to do copyright infringement. They even made up t-shirts advertising the event for this one. They were fully committed to this show is what I'm getting at here. Now, the 1988 Burning Man attracted a good-sized crowd of approximately 200 people. It was also the first year that the police became involved in this event. I am sure that a random beachgoer was suspicious of a 30-foot tall or a 9-meter tall wooden figure. Yes, they built this one up this year in 1988 to be 30-foot tall. That's way bigger, 2 times bigger than the second year one. Now, I watched the video that was taped of the police questioning this guy who was playing the drums on the beach, and it was quite hilarious, I must just say. Like, this guy was totally caught off guard. I don't know if he was telling the truth to police officers, but the police officers, they were grilling this poor guy. Like, they were just saying, what is going on here? What is going on here? Over and over, just asking him. And he goes, I don't know, man. I was just out here on the beach just playing my drums. I don't know. And they're like, really? Really? You have no idea what is going on here? You're just randomly playing drums? He goes, yeah, I was just playing these, and these people just came out here, set this up to set it on fire. It was pretty hilarious. You'll be able to find that in the burningman.org webpage, and that will be a link to my show description. You guys should all check that out. It's quite funny. You go to the 1988 one on their timeline, and you'll find that YouTube video in there. Now, the cops seemed very concerned and confused to why this huge effigy was built, and a crowd was around it waiting to set on fire. I am sure that it seemed like some sort of cult, especially since this was taking place right outside of eccentric San Francisco. Now, they managed to talk to the cops and somehow convince them to let them finish out this burn. Besides the interference of law enforcement that evening, a more prolific occurrence happened that helped catapult the popularity of Burning Man. This was the discovery of an organization that went by the title, quote unquote, the Cacophony Society. The following year of 1989, the Cacophony Society had put the Burning Man event on their event newsletter called The Rough Draft. I thought that was a pretty neat title for their newsletter, The Rough Draft. It was accessible for anyone in the community. It was essentially a list of events going on around San Francisco that you could attend. You could call the Cacophony's phone number and find out more information on said events. And the listed event in the rough draft at the bottom was the Burning Man's date, location, and where to attend. This, of course, popularized the Burning Man with the help of the Cacophony Society. Before moving further on with the Burning Man, allow me to explain to you a little bit about the Cacophony Society so you have a better picture in your head of what this group is and what it did, or I should say does. Because I looked online and I could not, the last post I saw was back in 2012, so I don't think they exist anymore. But if you're like me, you've never heard of this group, so it's kind of nice to know. So I found at burnlife.org this issue of one of their rough drafts, the Cacophony's rough draft, right? Their newsletter. And I want to read that to you. Quote, issue number 48, September 1990. The official organ of the San Francisco Cacophony Society. The Cacophony Society is a randomly gathered network of free spirits united in the pursuit of experiences beyond the pale of mainstream society. We are the merry pranksters of the 90s, traveling through the social landscape, dispensing a variety of mind-challenging activities to everyone. You may already be a member. End quote. That is the summation of this organization's ethos right there, at least in the 90s as described. But the Cacophony Society formed a few years prior to 1990, in 1986 to be precise. The group formed from a previous group called the Suicide Club, which dissipated in 1982. And no, they did not perform suicide. It was more a title against mainstream society. The Suicide Club was the club that started the underground movement in America and formed in San Francisco. Underground being that it was a secret society that consisted of trespassing, urban adventuring, flash mobs, sewer walks, riding naked on trolleys, performance art, which riding naked on trolleys was a sort of performance art for them. Dadaist activities and anarchist type behavior, but safe, innocent anarchist type behavior, I should say, is more against popular culture. Now, the same energy carried over into the Cacophony Society after the Suicide Club disintegrated. It carried over, though, from old members of that Suicide Club. Now, in the early 90s, the Cacophony spread to around 20 major cities in the United States and became international. It was a pretty big deal taking off. They were pivotal, as I previously hinted, to the formation of the Burning Man. Not just because they helped popularize it in their newsletter called The Rough Draft, but because in 1990, when the Burning Man was setting up again on Baker Beach, law enforcement was aware and already there this year to not allow it, due to a fire ban occurring in Los Angeles at the time, which is pretty common for California to have. The 350 people-sized crowd that year went into an uproar and was demanding to have it set ablaze regardless of the cops. However, they did not burn it down. A few Cacophonist members who were attending that event decided to invite Larry Harvey and Jerry James, the founders, to an event out in the Black Rock Desert that was called Zone Trip Number 4. This was a Labor Day weekend trip that was organized by the Cacophony, but instead turned into a collaboration which led to the Burning Man that we know today. Thanks to the police intervention preventing the effigies burned that day on Baker's Beach. The Burning Man turned into a place for Dadaists, or people who rally against mainstream society. It is a wild festival where you will see people dressed in the most outlandish outfits. Many of them look like characters straight out of Mad Max to me, which is funny to say because they had a Thunderdome themed year once at the Burning Man. Every year has a new theme. It is also filled with street performers and artists of every variety. I guess it is just a very surreal experience when you're there. Out of the 350 people who showed up on the Baker Beach for that last year there, only 90 of them made the voyage out to the Black Rock Desert in Nevada for that first year in the Black Rock Desert. For the very first year, only 90 out of 350 attended that. I bet you can't guess the last recorded number according to burningman.org. On the website's timeline, which is well put together, I recommend you check it out. The last year they have listed on that timeline is in 2022 for some reason. I don't understand why, because they had one in 2023. And it is recorded of having a population that year of 75,069 people. With Black Rock City spanning 3,935 acres, or the equivalent of 6.14 miles in diameter. That is a massive increase, people, over a span of 32 years in the making. That was not the only thing that massively increased. So did the ticket prices. The ticket prices went from $0, which lasted from 1990, the founding of the Black Rock City Burning Man, to all the way to 94. 1994 was the first year that they charged for admission. It was a humble $30, but heck, it was $30. That's a big difference from zero. It increased from $30 to $35 that following year in 95. The cheapest ticket that I could find for the upcoming Burning Man in the year 2024, this year coming up, this Labor Day weekend, September, is $575 per ticket, and that is not including all the other fees, such as a bus ticket to get out there or a vehicle permit. And you must bring food, shelter, and beverages for yourself during the whole entire stay. Part of this experience, besides performance art, is self-reliance, remember? Meaning, bring everything you need to survive in a desert. There is much more that I could talk about on the subject of Burning Man. It just has a rich history with a very wild side to it. It honestly looks like a lot of fun if you have the money and time to travel there and partake in it. And I recommend checking out the links that I'll provide so you can see these crazy photos and read up on it in more detail just for yourself. Now that I have elaborated a bit on the most famous fire festival in the United States, I would like to now take you all back to the realm so we can go face to face with our own burning entity, the Blaze, the mechanical monster that guards the nether fortresses by shooting out balls of fire and spins into a burning flame that can set you ablaze in close combat. I am going in the portal. Whenever you are ready, walk through and materialize in the nether with me. I shall take you to the Blaze. Welcome to the realm, my friends. You must be on the guard while here in the nether. There are many hostiles afoot waiting for a fight, such as piglins, zoglins, hoglins, all the oglins, striders, ghasts, wither skeletons, and many other fiends. But today we are looking for a blaze. What is a blaze? Well, according to minecraft.wiki.com, a blaze is, quote, a blaze is a hostile mob found in nether fortresses and the only source of blaze rods, end quote. I find this to be a rather poor description. Allow me to describe this mob to you. It is essentially a yellowish / I would say gold cubed head with 2 eyeballs and a series of 12 gold rods independently floating around it in continuous orbit. 4 rods below it, 4 in the middle of the head, and 4 more interlapping the middle rods and going to the top of its head. They aren't connected to its head, they float independently from it. Now, these spinning rods act as a defense mechanism. It ensures that the blades cannot be touched. I believe that these rods also act as its charge for the fireballs that it shoots out and for catching its body on fire in melee attack mode. The blaze is also constantly smoldering, emitting a black char of smoke that bellows from its body and floats upward in the air. It also makes noises. I had the displeasure of being very close to this monster, face to face actually, through a glass window. It made a mechanical breathing sound that I can only describe as sounding like an off version of Darth Vader. The creature is composed of 3 colors, a bright Minecraft sun yellow, a slight burnt orange, and a dark burnt orange. I should also mention that the blaze defies gravity by floating or flying around. However, I have read that when inactive, that it will sit until activated again or when it's aware of your presence. The blaze has been around for quite a long time. In fact, we were introduced to this brute on November 18th, 2011, in the first ever official version of the game of Minecraft upon the world. The second version of the adventure update, and after 2.5 years of developing the game. And little has been changed to this mob since, which is very interesting to me. I say that due to the fact that these history sheets found on these mobs found at minecraft.wiki are usually very long, meaning that usually a bunch of alterations take place to mobs and blocks over the years. However, the blaze seems to have been rather immune to change when it comes to Minecraft. Just a couple artistic alterations in its design have been made. I would like to now explain to you the blaze's behavior so you know what to expect for when you encounter it. The blaze is a very unusual entity with unusual behavior. Like most mobs in the nether, it is not friendly at all. It will attack you if you fall in its line of sight, which this knowledge can be quite useful to you if you use it right. You can hide behind obstacles in order to escape its view. I will suggest bringing a crossbow or bow into the nether with you alongside a bunch of arrows. It can be very beneficial to attack this monster from a distance, then duck for cover to hide, and then jump back out and hit it again until it dies. It may take a few volleys from your bow to kill the beast or a few swipes of your sword. It does not have a massive health bar. Actually, it has the same amount of health points as you do, which is 10 hearts or 20 health points. They aren't horrible to kill, so don't worry. I have been killing these blazes left and right with my diamond sword and shield. I highly recommend that you take a shield and a full suit of iron armor at least with you, and enchant everything if possible. Now, when the blaze does attack you, which it will, once it sees you, it will first start to shoot a volley of 3 small fireballs at you, which each fireball causes 5 damage points or 2.5 hearts to be lost. I can attest to the damage myself. I have been hit by these fireballs while trying to harvest blaze rods from the blaze. However, the blaze is not the most accurate shot. It shoots fireballs with the same accuracy as a dispenser does when it shoots a fire charge. Kind of a sporadic shot, shoot from the hip approach. But 3 of these fireballs coming at you in rapid succession is more like a shotgun effect. They can detect you up to 48 blocks away, and as I have said, they can fly. It does not take too long for them to charge you and melee attack. Their melee attack is deadlier than their fireballs. If you have one come upon you, then you know that it will set itself on fire and hit you with its blazing rods, causing 6 damage points per strike or 3 hearts, half a heart more than a fireball. This can prove deadly when combined with the fireballs and then a melee strike coming in. You can perish fast if you're just not prepared, but it can all pay off if you thwart the blaze from its offensive attacks and strike it with a sword or arrow when it's cooling down between shots. The blaze will wait 5 seconds between shooting its fireballs and setting itself on fire, allowing you to take it down. When you manage to kill the blaze, you will have the chance of collecting 1 blaze rod. It may not drop anything, but hopefully it does. That is why you're here, for those blaze rods. And the blaze rod is probably one of the most useful resources that you can acquire in the nether. More on its uses later. Now that we know how strong this mechanical monster is, let's discuss what its weaknesses are. We all know that the blaze loves the heat. In fact, it will fly right through lava falls and ride them. But how does something that smolders and sets itself on fire react to ice and snow? Not very well. It may be wise to pack a few snowballs before entering hell, as it turns out. It may prove to be a wise form of ammunition. 1 snowball hit on a blaze will cause 3 damage points to it, or 1.5 hearts of damage on the foe. Powdered snow will damage it even more, causing 5 damage points or 2.5 hearts of damage. You can even try to extinguish its life force with splash water bottles. This will damage it by half a heart or 1 damage point. Put that fire out, everyone. Just put it out with snowballs and water and ice. I am going to test this out the next time I go in there to collect blaze rods, which I want to go into next. Blaze rods are the only reason that person would want to encounter a blaze. Blaze rods are extremely important in the game of Minecraft. They are only obtained from the slain blaze, and this mob only has a chance of dropping 0 to 1 of these, making it rather rare and dangerous to acquire. But once gathered, it can be used to craft some very unique items. The blaze rod by itself can be used to craft a few blocks. The newly introduced copper bulbs that came with the Tricky Trials 1.21 update on June 13th require a blaze rod to craft those, for example. If you want to craft the copper bulbs, then you will need 1 blaze rod, 1 redstone dust, and 3 copper blocks. I hope you guys been stocking up before the update. I've been stocking up on copper blocks like crazy, so I am not out of copper, at least not right at the moment. Now, this recipe will produce 4 copper light bulbs, everyone, and I recommend a lever in order to turn it on. That's what I use because I'm not very redstone tech savvy. These copper bulbs can be turned on with the lever and then the lever removed. And once you remove that lever, the bulb will still remain on. And I recommend utilizing this new block. It is a great new light source that brings a beautiful aesthetic to your builds. Gives me an industrial vibe, steampunk or something of the other. The copper bulb was the first 1.21 update item that I crafted. I immediately started to place them around my old district of my capital city called Seatown. I love how they can enhance I just love how they have that old feel and have enhanced my first settlement. And these bulbs also oxidize over time, if not waxed, just like the copper blocks in the game. I let them go all the way to stage 4 in oxidation, personally. This also affects the light intensity. I love that. I love how it affects the light intensity, how it oxidizes more. The more it oxidizes, the less light output. Moving on to a more important item that you can craft with blaze rods is the brewing stand. The blaze rod itself is the most expensive item required in order to make the brewing stand. It just takes 1 blaze rod and 3 cobblestone blocks to craft it. Now, you have an occupational block after you make that, and that has the ability to create a cleric in your town. And you are now capable of producing potions on your own with that. Brewing stands require 1 essential ingredient in order to make potions. It is the fuel in which to brew these mystical properties together. That would be blaze powder. Fortunately for you, we already have blaze rods from our expedition in the nether and by slaying some blazes. With the blaze rods on hand, all you have to do is crush them up in the blaze powder. You can do this without a crafting table. Just use your bare hands. Crushing the blaze rod, will produce 2 blaze powders. This blaze powder can then be placed in the slot that is shaped like the blaze powder in the brewing stand's user interface when you open it up. 1 blaze powder is enough fuel to produce 20 batches of potions, and that is not timed like in a furnace, meaning that it will not just sit there and burn continuously even if you are not brewing anything. It will only burn when water bottles are introduced to it and an ingredient of sorts to make that potion. I will not be elaborating further on brewing stands today. That will have its own episode altogether. Potions are an elaborate process with much to be said on. I just wanted you all to know that blaze rods and powder are necessary for crafting the brewing stand itself and for brewing potions. Now let's move on to the last item that can be crafted by using blaze rods. That would be the ender rod. You are able to take your blaze rod and combine that with a chorus fruit that is only found in the end dimension. Combining these 2 items will create an ender rod. Honestly, I have never made this before because I have not yet visited the end. But minecraft.wiki explains that the ender rods are, quote, an end rod is a decorative light source that emits white particles, end quote. And that is exactly their sole purpose from what I've researched. I mean, that's all they do. They are purely a decorative block used for light. They can be placed on any type of block. 1 blaze rod and a chorus fruit, 1 chorus fruit will yield 4 ender rods. They look like a weird glowing candlestick to me. Like a Halloween glow stick. I think they look very sci-fi, and I can't wait to craft these items one day and incorporate them into my cities, make them look really futuristic. That'd be kind of neat. But before you can craft these ender rods, you will have to travel to the end. This is only achievable by finding an end portal in a stronghold. And to activate this, the end portal requires 12 ender eyes. Ender eyes are only craftable by combining one ender pearl with one blaze powder. This will make one ender eye. These ender eyes are also extremely useful for finding these strongholds. If you hold an ender eye in your sword hand and activate it, it will take off like a Quidditch ball and start to fly in the direction of the nearest stronghold. Isn't that cool? Now, it will only fly for about 12 blocks at a time and can only be thrown about 3 times before it breaks. But if you had enough of these, then you would be able to locate a stronghold and then add 12 ender eyes to that portal to activate it in order to travel to the end. My brother and I tried this last week but failed to locate a stronghold. I need to gather some more ender eyes and make another attempt at locating one. I think I'll do that probably this weekend. With an ender eye, you can craft a couple of other worthy items, such as an end crystal, which is used to respawn the ender dragon. I imagine this is done so you can make the ender dragon a renewable resource. Also, with ender eyes, you can craft an ender chest. It just takes one ender eye and 8 obsidian blocks to craft one of these chests, which, if you remember in episode 24 last week, we covered how to make your own obsidian blocks. Ender chests are an amazing addition to the game of Minecraft, in my opinion. They save so much time in transporting goods. Ender chests are linkable, meaning that if you have 2 ender chests, then the items stored in one will also be in the other no matter the distance apart from each other. Like quantum computing of sorts, but quantum ender chests. Ever since I have acquired blaze rods, I immediately crafted ender chests. I have made 3 ender chests and have placed 2 of them in my 2 banks that are spread thousands of blocks apart. And my 3rd chest is out on my snowy frontier town, which is also thousands of blocks away by rail. Having these 3 chests linked up has allowed me to place my most precious resources in it, allowing me to access gold, diamonds, diamond tools, and other resources without worrying about losing them while in transit. Also, other players that come in my world do not have access to the items in that chest or to my ender chest, period. Only your items are available to you alone. But your friend or friends can place their items in there and do the same thing with the chest as you do. You just won't have access to their items. It is just specific to the player. This is a great storage device to have in player versus player online. Great defense against griefers. Those are the items that you can craft from blaze rods, folks. And I am sure that I did not cover half of the offhand uses that you can do with these items. Perhaps players are probably doing very creative things with ender eyes, ender rods, copper bulbs, and more that I have not yet seen online. I hope that this summation of the blaze has provided a general guide to navigating this mob and the uses of the blaze rod that it drops. The Blaze is a monster that resides in the nether fortresses. It is a hostile mob that can detect you from a very far range and is able to attack you from that far range with a 3 fireball burst. And if you allow it to get too close to you, it will damage you even further with a melee attack. But if you manage to maneuver around it and inflict damage till you rid the beast, you may be rewarded with a blaze rod, which you will eventually need in order to advance your gameplay. This blaze rod will give you the capabilities to craft amazing new items, such as the aforementioned copper bulbs, the brewing stand, and then using blaze powder to fuel it. You will want to make ender eyes and craft ender chests to store your most valuable assets. Also, those ender eyes will eventually lead you to a stronghold in order to activate an end portal. Blaze rods are essential to being able to travel to the end, which I am sure everyone will want to experience at one point in their Minecraft gaming experience. I know that I sure do. I am currently on the lookout right now for a stronghold and am ready to go to the end and explore that ominous region of space and time. I hope you all get there one day as well. Hopefully you all safely find a nether fortress and slay some blazes. I would love to know if you do. Leave a comment on my Twitter, Reddit, or email and let me know all about it. I hope this all was helpful. Like all this information I provided on this episode today. I really do. Also, maybe you are now inspired to travel to Nevada and experience the Dadaist movement called the Burning Man, or embrace your cacophony side and meet a bunch of like-minded people from all around the world. I myself would not mind going to see this event just for the sake of it. With that said, everyone, that is all I have on this week's episode covering the Blaze. It was an absolute pleasure to be your host again, and I hope you all happy crafting. The Dark Lord signing out. Hello, Minecraftians. The Dark Lord here. I just want to say thank you for listening to the show. If you like the show, please show it by rating it and leaving a review on whatever platform you are listening on. Reviews help so much. Please drop that review. You can also email me at realmnews247@gmail.com and find the Realm News social media accounts at bio.link/realmnews. There you will find the Realm News Reddit page, Twitter, now X, and the Discord. Join all three and show your support. Tell all your friends and family about the show. Let's grow it, everybody. I want to get this as big as possible. Let's build a big community. I'll see you all next week. Happy crafting, everyone.